Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99, and I've just got back from Summoners Con. I had an absolute blast there, hanging out with all sorts of wonderful people, seeing some old friends, making some new ones, and even taking part in the YouTube Q&A panel. I gotta say, there's nothing like a great event to get you motivated to produce more content. Today we're going to be talking about a champion that I've been meaning to talk about for a while. I've been making a lot of videos on champions in League recently, talking about their design, newer champions versus older ones, and making a couple guides. Out of all the newer champions released though, the one that's really caught my interest more than any other has been Gnar. Gnar is a champion that I naturally picked up since he's a top lane champion and I enjoy playing top lane. He was the first top laner released since Aatrox, and it seemed like a pretty unusual champion when I first took a look at him, just looking at his kit alone, but to be honest, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started playing him. He's probably one of the most unusual champions I've seen in a very long time. Let me lay it out for you like this. For 90% of the champions in League, everything is straightforward. Your skills, your leveling, it's all planned out and very easy for someone to pick up and get used to very quickly. Aurelia, for instance, my most played champion, is fairly complex and has a decent level of depth, but nothing that I couldn't condense into my 10-minute guide on her. She has a very understandable power curve where she's fairly weak early on, but then gets a power spike in the mid game when she gets level 6 and or her Sheen, has a very strong mid game, and then eventually tapers off late. It obviously takes a lot of time to actually master her, or any champion out there, but most champions are fairly simple to understand and they can be explained to a player that understands the game fairly easily, since most of them at least follow Riot's design philosophy of easy to learn, hard to master. Gnar, on the other hand, is a completely different story. I wanted to pick him up on release, eventually getting comfortable enough to bring him into ranked and maybe make a guide on him, but I've had a lot of trouble since he's such a new champion with his design. He's anything but simple because he's so different compared to all the other champions we've gotten used to over these past few years of playing the game. His power curve jumps all over the map for one thing. Instead of either just being good or bad in the early, mid, and late game, he could be incredibly weak at level 1, then incredibly overpowered at level 2, and then back to weaker than ever at level 3. It all depends on how you play him. At level 1, for instance, if you level up your boomerang first, you're going to be pretty weak, with no outstanding amount of damage and a fairly squishy character compared to a lot of the other top laners out there. But if you auto attack enough and start building up your Fury to activate your passive soon, then at level 2 you can get your W and have a huge amount of DPS. Proccing your W with your boomerang, getting the speed boost, auto attacking your opponent, and probably transforming into Mega Gnar at some point will all lead to you destroying your opponent in lane if they don't expect this sudden spike of power. When Gnar first came out, he was really easy to abuse this way, since nobody really knew the kind of DPS he had at level 2 or other early levels when he transforms. Despite how strong he may be at level 2 though, without that ulti you become a lot weaker, so much so that even if you get that early kill on your lane opponent, by the time you both get back to lane, your opponent may be able to 1v1 you. His power spikes very hard, both in a positive and negative way. On the other side of the coin, someone who doesn't build up Fury and just passively farms, maybe gets E at level 2 for an escape, that person won't nearly have the same spike in power that the first player does, just because of how they chose to play. However, that second player gets to play much safer, of course. They won't get early kills in lane, but they'll be a major force in team fights throughout the mid game due to farming nicely and not giving any kills if they're safe enough, all that jazz. It just feels like there's so many different options for you when you play Gnar that he can seem odd or overwhelming when you aren't sure of your game plan. He really isn't like any other champion in League, which makes him difficult to get used to if you've already spent hours upon hours on other characters. The fact that there's this almost invisible skill, the Mega Gnar transformation, that you choose to activate with your playstyle rather than an input makes him feel unique in the gigantic champion pool League now has. Instead of players being forced to bend around the will of the champion, around the champion's strong and weak points and where he was designed to be good in game, now we have a champion who really does lend himself to a crazy amount of creativity. You may have different power spikes than another Gnar player out there depending on how you choose to play, and that focus on giving the player freedom of choice with their playstyle is something that's amazing. Riot has been really creative with a lot of their champions releases lately, maybe due to the fact that they're only releasing them once every few patches rather than every other week as they did forever ago. But anyway, it's something to definitely keep an eye on heading into Season 5. We have a lot of changes coming up as we do at the start of every season, so seeing how all these different characters and these new unique champions that have been added to League, how they're all going to react to all these changes is something to keep an eye on. Please tell me in the comments who you all think are some of the more unusual champions in League of Legends, either to play as or play against, whether it's just through how weird their skills are or how odd they are to play compared to all the other characters in their role. I'm really loving how Creative Riot's champion design team has been recently, and I've enjoyed talking about it in these past few videos. We are going to be moving away from this topic in a little bit in the upcoming future, so as not to beat it to death. But anyway, until then, I hope you all enjoyed watching today's video. I'll see you all next time. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.